So this is a stove windscreen by REDCAMP. I was sent this to review for free. If you wanted to purchase this, it would cost you about $30. They haven't paid me for my review, and my opinions remain my own. So inside of the cardboard packaging, we have this Velcro closed carry bag, which is kind of a pretty kind of heavy duty, it looks like maybe nylon synthetic fabric here. It has a handle for carrying it, and it's pretty flat, you know, maybe 3/4 of an inch thick here. Right, so total packed weight here is 4 pounds 9 ounces with the rings and the carry case. So this is probably not a backpacking windbreak, but certainly something that'd be easy to stow into a car camping trip. Now inside we have this guy here, which folds out into a pretty decent size. All right, this is 23 1/2 by 46 3/4. And the idea is you can fold this out as a windscreen to protect a fire from wind or a camp stove from wind. Now also in the bottom of the bag are these little loops which you can put through the holes. So there's a hole in each of these pieces of metal. And I have it upside down, I believe, because although there's holes at the top edge here, there's 2 holes at the front and back. On each piece in the middle here, there's a hole on the bottom. And so the idea is you can put these loops through those holes and then put a stake through the loop to hold it and keep it from kind of blowing over if the wind gets really violent. I put rings in 3 of the holes because I dug up 3 stakes. You really need 8 stakes and 8 rings to get 1 in each of these guys. You might be able to use the holes in the top corners with some type of a tie-down rope or something. I'm not quite sure why they have the holes in the top corners. Now they do not include any stakes, so you'll have to provide your own stakes that can go through these guys here. You can see there it kind of folded a little on its own. So I have the C-Star S50 Smart Telescope, and it works pretty well, but in windy conditions, the wind blows it around enough that it has to throw out a lot of frames because it gets star trails and just motion blur and, it basically wiggles around in the wind. So I'm hoping this windshield will do a good job in preventing the wind from moving it around. So the 23 1/2 inches is quite high. It's well above the top of the C-Star here, at least with the arm kind of pointing out this way. Now I just wrapped it all the way around that kind of paver. I might need to adjust that to have a larger opening here in the front depending on how much this is going to turn during a session. Obviously if it's looking almost straight up, it'll be able to look up all the way around, but you will have to organize this hole in the screen to give yourself a viewport for anything lower down in the sky. So I staked this down in 3 places, kind of, at each end here, and then I have 1 stake right there, kind of in halfway in the middle point. And it wiggles around here, so if you got a really big gust, this thing would still wiggle, but it doesn't look like it's going to be, knocked over. I can push on it and it's not going to be knocked over. But depending on the wind speed, it could really wiggle around. Now I believe you could tie a string here, run it down to a stake, and eliminate some of that wiggle, but there's only 2 holes on the top at the 2 ends. They don't have any holes around the outside. Now I tried to pull this stake out by grabbing the metal and lifting up, and that little ring actually unbent itself, so pull the stake out, not by the ring. It looks like I have well more than 8 rings here, so they gave me a couple of spares. I'm okay. Alright, I have it staked at each end and right here in the back, so I only have 3 stakes, and so if you don't have like a stone to wrap around, it kind of goes into a triangular pattern, which is pretty reasonable if you have wind coming from one particular direction. We have a very light breeze here, and it's waving around in the breeze just a little bit, but it looks like it'll stand up to a reasonable breeze. I think if I had 8 stakes, that would be a lot more stable than just with the 3 I have right now. So the construction is metal. I'm assuming that's steel because this magnet's sticking to it pretty well. These panels are painted, kind of a flat black color. I'm assuming it's a heat-resistant paint, but you know, eventually you might have a little bit of an issue with rust and corrosion if you get it out in the weather and gets wet. This is set up with no stakes at all. You know, it will hold a shape and kind of sustain itself upright as long as it doesn't get hit by a big gust of wind. I could certainly see collecting a few rocks and just putting rocks kind of on the inside and the outside to kind of hold it in place and not using stakes. I think I would have liked if they'd included 8 small stakes with it. Seems like a pretty simple ask, but it's technically possible to use this without any stakes. Alright, so up here we have just a barely faint wind. You know, it's a ½ mile an hour, 0.9 miles per hour. There's 1.34 miles per hour. You know, I move this down inside this windshield here, and it basically stops spinning, goes down to 0. So, you know, it is blocking that slight breeze pretty well. So you can see I'm holding it just about level with the top of this guy. You know, so level with the top of that guy at 0. If I lift it above it, you know, it goes up to, you know, we're doing 1 mile an hour or so of wind. So, you know, it's not super windy. And there's some shutter effects here. That spinning blade is actually spinning a lot faster than it looks like in the video monitor because my shutter's kind of doing a tachometer thing with it. But, you know, we're, you know, 1 to 1.5 miles per hour up high, and then down here, you know, it just stops and goes down to 0. So this guy definitely does a good job of shielding what's inside of it from small gusts of wind. I think if you got super windy conditions, you'd really need to shore this up with some heavy rocks, maybe some guidelines. So I've seen people take a trash can, cut a window out of it, and just put it upside down over the S50. And that might work a little better because you'd have kind of all the way around structural stability. Whereas this guy's just kind of, you know, it's cut in the middle here, and so it goes around, and I could see potentially it falling over, getting blown into the S50 if you had a big enough wind gust. On the other hand, this guy's a lot easier to pack away than a giant trash can. Alright, I've put 8 rings on that side there and 1 in each corner here, and I have 3 extra plus the one I broke by pulling it out with the stake still attached. So they give you 4 extra rings, at least in my bag. So another question I have is, will it fold back into the carry case with the rings attached? So I didn't take any special care there. These rings are making it a little bit wider. Let's just throw it in and see what happens. So yeah, it fits in there pretty well even with those rings attached. Alright, so I feel like value for money, this guy's a pretty good deal at the price point. $30, I mean, it's steel, but it comes with a nice packing carrying case. It's a little wiggly, and I'm sure you could bend it if you tried, but if you're a little bit careful with it, I think it should last quite a while, just setting it out as a windscreen.